Welcome back to the Eight Man Breakdowns podcast. This is where we discuss all phases of the game of football, including philosophy, play concepts, questions, and more. Joining me today is Coach Joe Roche. Coach Roche is the head coach at Ell-Saline High School in Brookville, Kansas. Coach Roche has 30 total years of coaching experience. He started his coaching career at Sacred Heart Junior High and High School in Salina and has now spent the last 26 years coaching at Ell-Saline, with the previous 4 as the school's head coach. At Ell-Saline, he helped lead the Cardinals to the state title game in 2014, falling just short by 2 points to Olpe. They just recently made the switch to the 8-man game, and Coach Roche led the Cardinals to the semifinals last season before losing to defending state champs, Wichita County. In his 2 years now coaching an 8-man, his teams have had great success, 6-3 in 2022 and 10-2 last season. Well, Coach, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, yeah, man. I've been listening to you and I love tapping into your show. And so I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, thank you. So let's just start with some background information. Just tell us a little about yourself and how you got into coaching.
I'm from Salina. I'm the son of 2 teachers. So I think the teaching side of it, at least, maybe teaching and coaching aren't that different anyway. But, I think definitely it's in my blood. I went to South High School, played quarterback there from freshman through senior. Started my senior year. We had some pretty good quarterbacks ahead of me. I went to K-State and had a little fun for 3 semesters, and then got my act together over at Kansas Wesleyan, got into the teaching program, and decided to play football over there, where did about everything. I started out as a running back, then got moved to DB a little bit, and then our backup quarterback up and left. So I moved into that role too. Good thing probably that I never had to step in on the starting quarterback job, but it would have been fun. We had a good guy ahead of me. And then I'm from the area, of course, and so I know some guys around here. And just through the network, I got back on with my old junior high football coach, Fritz Jaquay over at Sacred Heart. And then he left, and I coached under Tony Cannicary for a while. And even before that with Sacred Heart Junior High with Grant Lane. And then it was just on from there. I moved over to Ell-Saline and been there ever since. I started under Chris Barkley. Then Terry King took over, was there for 20, 22 years, something like that, maybe even a little bit more. And then I am. Then I moved in. So, yeah, I've been doing it all my life, coaching and, just playing ball of some sort. So if it's either mostly baseball and football, definitely, but I've also coached a little volleyball, a little basketball, a little track. So, yeah, I've been at it ever since.
You're saying it's in your blood. You have teachers in your family. What do you teach?
I'm a social studies teacher, sophomores through seniors, all core curriculum classes. I started out with 7th graders, so we have a school with our 7th and 8th grade right there with us. So I got to see the kids develop through junior high. Now, at this point, there's some kids walking around school that I don't know, and yeah, I'm always kind of excited for the new bloods to be in my classroom.
And have you always taught the social studies then?
Yes, yes. Started out when I first got on there. I guess I taught a little life science, but that was just kind of taken over for a teaching change that we had. Yeah, it's social studies. It's always been that way.
And is that something that your parents taught also?
No, my dad was an English teacher, and then mom, when she finished over at Salina Central, she was teaching like at-risk kids, those kinds of classes,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, that's what they called them back then. I don't even know the vernacular anymore for that kind of range, but so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just right there, man. It's right there in the blood, I guess.
You played quarterback at Salina South and then kind of jumped around and played a little bit of everything at Kansas Wesleyan.
Yeah.
I guess going from that, coaching high school, and then now transitioning to 8-man, how has that impacted your coaching style?
Well, that's when I kind of really learned the game. I mean, when you're in high school, you think you know it until somebody steps it up on you, or when you have to start teaching it. When I got to Wesleyan, I thought I was going to play defensive back when I went in there, and so I was talking to the DC Coach Majeski for endless hours about the 4-3 defense and what we could do out of it. It was, back then it was based on that Miami Hurricane defense. And then I moved over to offense pretty much immediately after I ran a couple good 40s, I guess, and was going to be a running back. And I learned the Nebraska offense under Brad Jenkins, who was a tight end on one of their, Orange Bowl teams. So we learned all about that kind of thing. And I've always grown up with watching Oklahoma football. And when I was really young, guys like Thomas Lott and J.C. Watts and Jamel Holloway, man, those guys taught me how to run the option, just made me fall in love with it. So that's really my background is as an option quarterback. And we tried to run a little bit in high school, but we had so much talent. Our fullback was Brent Venables. Can you
Wow.
believe that? I mean, he was our fullback middle linebacker. And we had so many guys around him that had so much talent. So really, my job was really just the distributor and get out of the way, kind of. But yeah, that's. I think Kansas Wesleyan was great for me. I got hurt late in the year, and that kind of made me retire. I got a neck injury, and yeah, Doc suggested that I don't, do that kind of thing anymore. So that's when I really got into coaching full time. But what Kansas Wesleyan taught me was the progression of it. You start small in practice and end with the team. So we try to go from individual to group to team, whenever we can at Ell-Saline. And I think it's the best way to do it. Teach progressively, start from the small, end with the big, and rep it all the way in between.
As you said, that's where you learn, you learn the game. I transitioned from 8-man to never playing a league game of 11-man and going to play junior college, and that was where I really opened my eyes to, this is how different it can be. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit and I'll jump back later. But just talk about the transition for you. And I know you've been coaching high school football for 30 years, but now relatively new to the 8-man game. Could you just talk about like the transition? What's that been like for you, the transition from 11-man for so many years and now into 8-man?
Schematically on offense, we don't do much different. We still run all our same sets, but just with less people. Defensively, we're finding ourselves, and because we had such great players, great tacklers, and you know, we played good on defense, this past year. But man, defense, we're still learning on defense, man, because in 8-man, there's no overhang. Like in 11-man, you always got some guy that's probably not going to get blocked, and he can kind of not, he can't just roam and do what he wants, but he's more free to make tackles. You cannot do that in 8-man. You do that in 8-man, and you're exposed.
Hmm.
And and I really respect the 8-man coaches because they're just like 11-man coaches, where they see something and man, they'll jump on it. And it might take them a half a play, but that next play, man, if you showing the same tendency, these coaches will jump on you, and it is fun to be around. So we got to be on our game. The transition, we used to run a lot of jet sweeps, and we still do some, but the 8-man field is so much more narrow, and that sideline gets up on you quick. And if you're going downhill, like off the crown of the field, you got to stop pretty quick.
Yeah.
So we don't we still run it, but it was an adjustment. And the length of the game, I don't know, man. It seems like it's just a little bit slower game time wise than 11-man. I don't know if that's true or not,
Hmm.
but
There could be
yeah,
more scoring too. I mean, I don't know. And you
maybe.
have more
Yeah,
experience in
I think
11.
you're right. Yeah, and that definitely lends into that. But it's been fun. The transition and learning, we got it. We're still learning. Like against Wichita County, they shifted and then motioned all to isolate their left guard or right guard on a pass.
Hmm.
And in 11-man, you would never do that. You cannot do that. It's totally illegal. But in 8-man, those are just things you just got to watch out for.
Yep.
And if you haven't been through it, then how do you know? And you don't even know what you don't know. And two times against Wichita County, they number 63 and number 33 each caught passes, and they look pretty darn good doing it. So it's still a learning curve, and it's been fun, and I've learned a lot. Since taking this job, you learn a lot, and good thing we're surrounded with good people around here. So I don't know how I would get it done if that were the opposite, for sure.
This next question, it's kind of the staple question I ask everybody, but what would you say is something maybe you guys do a little bit different than the other teams out there?
You know, I would say our foundation of Ell-Saline football is family, and everybody's got a role. And last season, everything falls into place when you're on a 10-game win streak, and everybody's in it to win it, and they know their role, and that goes from the players through the coaches, through parents. That's the way it's got to be. And the good thing, I think, one of the best things I did this past year was to find good people to do jobs and let them do it. And it worked out with our defensive coordinator, John Ludis. He really came into his own this past year. Brandon Toll, our offensive coordinator, who calls a vast majority of our plays from up in the booth down to me, and I feed him in. And the way he sees the game, and his play calling sometimes last year was just unbelievable. Not sometimes, many times. He would find tendencies or find you know combinations that worked in our favor, matchups, and he just exposed them. And he put our kids in the right spot with formationing and motioning. And it was just sometimes it was art, just seeing it develop on the field and the way the kids executed. Wow, it just makes you feel really proud. And then, it's a family affair because, my family here at home is just right there with me. My wife is our communications expert. We communicate through Team Snap and app, and she runs that, the scheduling, all of that. She gives it out to parents. They're notified prior, and it just worked out. So I think that's the best thing I did is not be a control freak. Try to take my ego out of a little bit and let people do their job with supervision, of course. I'm just not going to let things go wild. But by the end of the year, coach, it was a well-oiled machine, and that's the way it should be. So I think that family, 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 the trust we have in each other. I don't think you can win games like we won without trust in each other on both sides, coaches to players, players to coaches, and everything else in between. It was beautiful.
And that is awesome. Obviously, you guys have trust and relationships built. I mean, I would say that especially helps with you being there so long. I'm sure those kids know, your expectations from the time they get into junior high, and then
Oh
y-
yeah, yeah,
y-
they know me, and which definitely helps. And I've coached my own kids through the system.
Mhm.
All my kids went to Ell-Saline Elementary, and then came up to the middle school, high school. So it's and every step of the way, it's been kind of seamless. It's just kind of the way it should be. So me and my wife are just going through it one day at a time, and good Lord, He's got us going in the right direction right now. So.
Absolutely. And one other thing I wanted to ask you too about that was you kind of mentioned the different roles and how you let your coaches coach. Could you talk about how many assistants do you have, and talk a little more on the roles you give them?
I've been very fortunate to have three assistant coaches, and I'm truly blessed with the guys that I have on staff. I've known John Ludis since my freshman year in high school. I had Brandon Toll in class for three different classes, and Cody Came. I've had him in class, and they're all former football players, except for John, of course, because we were in high school together. But Brandon and Cody are former football players. They know exactly who I am, and I know them. It's not like we hang out a great deal, outside of football. But man, if we did hang out like tomorrow night, it would be like we never even stopped playing football. We just picked right up where it left off.
Mhm.
So I got a lot of trust in these guys, and I think they got a lot of trust in me. And so Cody Came. He's our sideline. He's our energy guy. He's a young guy. He played on our state title game team, so he knows football. He knows Ell-Saline football, and he loves it. He just breathes it, and he's the relationship builder, man. Those kids love him, and he'll put on the pads too, and he'll jack them around a little bit, and they love it. And there's some good energy going on. And then Brandon Toll, like I said, he calls the vast majority of our plays. He's an analytical guy. He always has been. He's just a smart guy, and he sees the game that way. And then John Ludis. He's our defensive coordinator, and he's our guy to say right now that it is not going the way we want it to go, and this is the
Mhm.
what we need, things like that. So these guys are so, they put so much in it that I gotta let them. I gotta see it through
Mhm.
because if I don't want to, I was coaching baseball over at South several years ago, and Tim Bavogel was our head coach. I was assistant, and there we had this kid who actually, I'm telling you, it was Weston Moody.
Oh,
Where's
wow.
he right now? Concordia? No,
Wamigo, right?
Wamigo?
Wamigo, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Wamigo. Great teams. He's just pumping them out right now. Well, he was just a freshman, and his batting, his technique was just all over the place. But yet everything he hit was right on the screws, and
Yep.
he swung at everything. If it's behind his head, he's gonna, he's turning around, he's gonna hit it, and it's gonna be on the screws. So I was like, Tim, man, I like this kid. Of course we can't cut him because we had tryouts back then over at South, and I said, but man, if you give me 5 minutes, I'm just a young kid. If you give me 5 minutes
Mhm.
with that kid, then I'll turn him into a different hitter. And Tim said, man, if you do anything to curtail his natural tendency, I'm never going to let you coach hitting ever again. And he had to
Yep.
explain it. I didn't understand it. But when he explained it, yeah, there is some technique flaws. Yes. But if you make him think about that, it might not be the same natural fluidity that
Mhm.
he has. So until it's broke, let's just ride it out for a while. And that's what we've done. We couldn't find a defense. We thought we liked the 3-3. We thought we liked the 3-2. Man, we thought we liked the 4-1. And I think all of those defenses are good at certain times and based on, of course, your personnel. If you don't have that one middle linebacker, you can't play the 4-1, and if you won't have two linebackers to take on, guards, then you're going to have a tough time playing the 3-2. So, we just found some matchups that we liked at certain points in the year, and we just let kids play. We gave them some rules, we gave them some sets, and some different alignments against a certain formation or a personnel group, and you just got to let them play. So, and man, they just executed. So maybe it all worked out. Maybe it's working. So we're going to try it again next year.
Jumping back to what you were saying there about your offensive coordinator and how you guys were really clicking, towards the end of the season, and I truly agree. I mean, it's so valuable to have a coach and up in the booth more than anything too, who can see everything, that knows your offense and can
Yes.
pick up on things so quickly.
Coach King, I coached with him for 20, 22 years or so, and he taught me a lot, man. And he never even had a playbook, and we would just rep it. He'd call it out, and we'd rep it, and we'd rep it again and again and again. And yeah, when you get Brandon Toll up there, when you get a guy who knows the offense as well as you do, he can say, "Oh yeah, they got a tendency, coach. I think we can expose it." And then me, nowadays, I'm like, okay, let's save it. Let's come back to it. Let's not use it yet, and let those kinds of things.
Mhm.
So, man, it's really been fun.
One of the things you had mentioned in your answers was adapting kids to learn new positions and techniques, and you had to do that even in 11 man with smaller roster numbers. Has that helped, I guess, with the transition to 8 man, with your smaller roster numbers? Has that helped with the adaptive coaching?
Oh man, no doubt about it. One of our kids about 4 or 5 years ago, we were walking off practice, and it was a Wednesday, and we found out it was a couple kids wouldn't be able to play, so we were moving people around and filling them in and coaching them up and things like that. And we broke practice, and we always shake hands and give each other, knuckles or whatever after practice. And one of the kids said, "Man, I just realized what Ell-Saline football is all about. What's holding it together?" I was like, "Yeah, what's that?" And he said, "Baling wire and hard work." And our kids, for some reason, have always kind of bought into playing new positions. Like this past year, the best example of that is Hunter Holmgren, who blew out his knee his junior year and worked his tail off to get back. And he was going to be, of course, he was going to come back as a running back or slot receiver on offense. And then our left guard goes down, and I'm like, "Hunter, what do you think?" About what, coach? I was like, what do you think about moving to left guard? And he's the first thing he said, he goes, does that mean I get a pull on an end? And I'm like, well, yeah, it'd be one of our, our base plays, and it'd be a great play to for you to get out some anger. He goes, man, I've always heard you say ear hole people. So I always, now I want to do it. So man, he jumped right in, and it was a thing of beauty because he's a load down there, even at a guy who's like only 5'5", 5'6", and
Mhm.
he's so strong pound for pound. So it all worked out. It was great. And you know, kids got to be ready. And our kids, for the most part, the upper kids, the kids with experience, they are well adaptive. So they're a fun group to work with for sure.
Again, talking about that, I mean, moving guys around and you being at Ell-Saline for a long time, the terminology probably hasn't changed much, but was that very hard, like adjusting formations or even terminology into 8-man? Was that hard at all for you guys?
Nope, not really. We used to go spread, so we'd go flanker to one side, tight end, wide receiver off, then slot to the other with a quarterback and a running back. So now in 8-man, if you do that, of course, you just take your running back off, and now you're empty. So we can still do it. It's just a little different. We can still run trips, but it's just going to be an empty, and we can still run doubles, but it's still, of course, it's going to be empty. So this year, one of the things I wanted to bring back was an under center formation, and we had Ryder Dent at fullback and Joe Heischel at tailback. So that the eye is obvious. I mean, and we pounded people with it. It was great to watch. So the kids just loved it. It's just running our same stuff that we've always done at El Salim, but we haven't done. We just kind of brought it back after a few years. But you might have two identical running backs, and I don't want to put those guys in an eye if nobody's going to be a true lead blocker. So
Mhm.
let's just run split back there, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But it's all in our playbook. Our playbook is, right now I think it's like 156 slides, but
Mhm.
it is an adaptation from me being at El Saline under Terry King and Chris Barkley since 1997. And I put it all into a big slideshow.
Mhm.
And man, I even have a glossary of terms. And it's just been a work in progress since 1997, basically. It's been fun.
Slideshow presentation, is that how you kinda introduce playbook to players?
Yeah, I use some software where I can, draw up the plays basically
Mhm.
and put them and just adapt those to a slide. So I will submit those to kids via Google Classroom like one day. Like the first thing we'll install is option. I mean, we're going to run the option at El Saline. If I'm around, we're going to run it. That's going to be our meat and bones. If we fall back on anything, it's got to be an option of some sort. So we'll install that, and I'll give them all these plays. And these are all our option possibilities. Here's are some formations, and let's just get after it. And it'll be an incremental installation of different types of blocking schemes. So we got down blocking scheme. Uh, we got to teach them the little trap block, down block kick out. How about a GT, like a guard tight end? There'd be obviously a tackle in 11 man,
Mhm.
but GT counter. We run power sometimes. So we run inside outside zone. So to start the year, to introduce the playbook, I introduced blocking scheme and various plays that you run out of that blocking scheme. And then I just submit the plays that I want kids to see, and it'll be on our Google Classroom. And
Okay.
so far, it's been working. I don't know even how much kids even look at that anymore.
Mhm.
And that's why I don't give anything paper to kids, because like Coach King said, we just see it on the locker room floor.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
we haven't even done that at El Saline for 20 years.
I've never
They're,
printed off anything by paper, but I know Coach Tiernan always did, even back, and this has only been 10, 12 years ago when I was in high school, but even then, like you said, it's either on the floor or it's lost somewhere in the back of your locker, you didn't really look at it. So I agree.
yeah,
Even
yeah.
even
And knowing Coach Tiernan, it was probably all handwritten.
yeah, yeah, it was, seriously.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
he
I
had
mean,
he
that's
had
Coach
somebody
Tiernan, right?
yeah, he had somebody else running the copy machine for him, I'm sure, but he wrote it all down. But
I love it.
And speaking more on your option though, you guys so when you say you're running some sort of option, is it more like dive option or speed option or like loaded option or what's the main option, I guess, or what's your go-to option?
All of the above except for load. We haven't run load at Ell-Saline for a long, long time. Not that I don't have anything against it, but we've had good fullbacks and good running backs and hard nosed kids. So let's get them up in the line of scrimmage as quickly as possible and leave one kid unblocked so we don't have to block it. We can block him with our eyes.
Mhm.
So we start out under center option. That's the basis. It's all vertical option from midline out to outside zone. If you have a split back, so inside option, we're leaving the defensive end unblocked, and we just read him. And then we run inside zone out of the shotgun, and we read backside end, and block the play side, of course, and leave the backside end undone as we call it. And if he chases, then the quarterback has every right to keep it and replace him with the ball. And then we run outside zone and we do the same thing. We read backside end. Now, an outside zone, what I really would like to do, and we did it a couple times, but we didn't rep it enough to be really very trustworthy in during a game because it's a different rhythm. You run outside zone and leave play side end unblocked. And if he comes up, you keep giving it to that running back, and then you have outside zone scheme. If he chases running back or makes a movement to his left or right, man quarterback replace. And it'd be really cool to run that same play. I've dreamed up a whole bunch of them. So think about like you got a slot to one side, tight end right, running back to your left out of the shotgun, and you run power, leave the play side end undone, run the power blocking scheme. So the backside guard is going to loop to the play side linebacker,
Mhm.
and you read the end. So if the end chases a running back on the outside zone, and quarterback's got power blocking scheme right in front of him.
Yep.
And if he collapses and takes away the quarterback, then you keep giving it to the running back. It'd be a sweet little combo. We play some really good defensive ends, and we tried it one time, and the kid from Hoxie just ate it up. He just penetrated and kind of tackled everybody.
Yep.
But
It's gotta be a
there's some
fast
things that
read.
we
Sorry.
yes, got to be a fast read. And Nate, man, that defensive end is that much closer, and
Yep.
so we learned that there's a timing, and the running back's got to be on. He can't go into the line of scrimmage at all. He's almost got to go away with his route from the line of
Mhm.
scrimmage to open up that defensive end a little bit more. So there's a lot of nuances to every play, but definitely the option. So we run it all.
Mhm.
We run speed option. Yeah, we pretty much run it all.
So talking about your dive option and then your zone read, I mean, how often do you spend like individual offensive sessions, dedicated to option, working on your mesh, your quarterback, running back mesh drills? I mean, is that something you guys do every day, or could you walk us through like a practice session?
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, we do it a lot, and we spend a lot of time in individual work and just repping and repping and repping and reading and hitting kids with with bags when they make the wrong read, things like that. So yeah, we do that quite a bit during the preseason and things like that early in the year. And then once the season gets on, then you kind of adapt your option game to your personnel, of course. So you're kind of, maybe you're not running every one of your options. Maybe you're more of a dive option team or more of an inside zone, zone read option team. So we spend probably we have a basic practice schedule. We get out there and kids will get warmed up and stretch and do that kind of thing. And then we'll go to specialties to let the quarterbacks throw it around and quarterback or wide receivers run and catch. And we'll have a kick going off here and there and a punt going off here and there. And linemen are doing all their steps and those kinds of things. And then we'll go individual O and individual defense for the most part. And that's where we can rep it whatever we want to do. I'm in charge of quarterback and running backs. Coach Toll's got the wide out, so he's stock blocking all the time and doing those kinds of things. And John Ludus has defensive, offensive linemen, and Cody Kame helps him out, and Cody coaches linebackers. So yeah, we that's what I do a lot. We just rep option game and then pass off of it too. I'd like to install some RPOs, but again, if you had time to rep it,
Mhm.
like they seemingly do in college, man. They
Yeah.
run RPOs flawlessly in college,
Mhm.
and it just makes it look so easy.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and install it, and then you waste 20 minutes. You know what the
Yep.
heck?
Yep, exactly.
So uh, there's got to be an easier one that I need to figure out because we got some smart quarterbacks.
Yeah, and if you can find one that fits with your option schemes already, then that'd make it even better. I know you said you went back to under center this year, but you obviously run some shotgun too. Would you say you or your players prefer running option more, under center or shotgun, or is there a preference or one that you've seen be more beneficial?
Well, I think for Marshall, it took him a while to really get the hang of an under center option. So I think at first he would obviously say uh, a shotgun is because you're farther from the line of scrimmage, and a defense, it's just a nice little view for the quarterback. But towards the end, when he realized that we have a 215-pound fullback who's a national champion steer wrestler, basically, a tough kid. Uh, and he runs with passion, with intensity. Man, that makes options easy, really easy. And that if you can obviously see when the defensive end crashes and takes away the fullback, it is wide open. So Marshall really started to get the hang of it, and good thing because his option reads at the end of the year saved us a couple times, in some key situations. And it wouldn't show on statistics. He only gained like 5 yards, but you know what? He only needed three. So and those plays are huge.
Mhm.
So that's why I like the option. You don't have to block somebody. Even an 8-man, you don't have to block somebody. You just got to be able to read them. You got to give into it. And and my thing as an option quarterback coach, you always look to give. And if you can't give, then you keep. And then you always look to keep. And if you can't keep, then you pitch. So if the quarterback can totally give into that, wow, it's a thing of beauty.
I mean, there is no harder play to stop all around, than a triple option
Oh yeah,
play in all
because it
levels.
makes every one of those defense, it makes the defense have to be assignment sound. And if there's a breakdown and the quarterback reads it, man, watch out. It's going to be big plays.
And I'm a modern offensive guy for sure, but coming from Tiernan's, I formation, we ran. I mean, all we did was ran. Pass was a cuss word to him,
Yeah, no doubt.
but I love watching Army Navy game or even Paul Johnson when Georgia Tech was when he was there in the ACC running the flex bone, and I mean, I loved watching that because that's such a difficult offense to prepare for it, within a 1 week, getting your guys ready to see something new and to have to stop the triple option. I mean, yeah, it is. There's no prettier looking play than a well executed triple option play for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I agree.
I'm gonna switch. I know we've been talking a lot of offense, but I do want to talk a little defense here, if you don't mind.
Okay. No, I love it.
So I kind of wanted to ask. I know you had said you guys tried a 3-2, 3-3, some 4-1, and kind of tried some different things. But what would you say about coaching defense in the 8-man game? How would you summarize your experience coaching defense in 8-man?
Well, be patient.
Hmm.
And there, don't underestimate any kid in 8-man, like I probably am guilty of in my former life, because there's a heck of a lot of kids in 8-man who bring it, and they will hit you and they will make you pay, and they'll expose you defensively if you're not tough enough. And you have to be assignment sound. You have to be. And you can't stare into the backfield. If that's what I look for on film, if I see DBs staring in the backfield, then we're going to play action and we're going to double move. If I see linebackers staring in the backfield, we're gonna misdirection. We're gonna pull guards. We're gonna kick out your ends, and we're gonna try to misdirection with quarterback and halfback exchange. But the good teams don't do that. The good teams, man, good defensive, I should say, they don't do it. And they are very assignment sound. And we had to learn that. And we had to learn which defense our kids liked most based on the type of kids that we have. But they got to like it too. Ryder, our middle linebacker, he loved the 4-1. But when we went to the 4-man front, we had to put two kids into the game who usually play one position. So now those two kids aren't getting the rest that they normally do, and they also play offensive line. You got to save kids sometimes from themselves. So hopefully you can find another linebacker and you can have two good defensive ends and play a 3-2. So that's what we ended up doing. And we kind of adjusted, in the 3-2 around your formation.
Did you have more success with a specific defense, or was it the 3-2?
Well, based on the formation. So if you come out in double tight, we don't want to be in a 3-2. There's too many gaps. There's space. I would love to see that as an offensive guy because I would dive option the heck out of it
Yeah.
and then kick out your end and then run underneath that. So we go to a 4-1. And we even tried a 4-2 against a non-passing team in a non-passing situation. Uh,
Was that difficult at all for your kids to to have, a larger playbook of defenses and kinda adapting on the fly, I guess, depending on formation? Was it hard to for your kids at all?
it probably was, but I think our seniors who were freshmen when I first started, as a head coach at least, uh, these seniors were on the field when they were freshmen, and they were
Mhm.
playing Smith Center
Yep.
and Phillipsburg, Plainville, Oakley, Inman, making a run at every state championship, Sedgwick, and we had to adapt to all these different style offenses. And so that's what we've just kept going at Ell-Saline. If you come out in double tight, we're going to come out in a four-man front. And if you come out in a one tight end, we could go to a either kind of, if you think about it, if you can find a third linebacker, you can go to a 3-3 and then kind of flex them out, things like that. If
Mhm.
not, you're going to a 3. Now, there's some teams that we've also seen on film that run the two-man front. I'm not really into that. Not that it's not a bad defense, because schematically, if you do things right, it is
Mhm.
against. But I would power against it. I would just run double tight against you and see what you got. So yeah, our 3-2 turned out to be our most versatile defense, and we had three good defensive backs who could go man to man a little bit. Even though I don't like man to man in high school football, not because man to man is a bad choice, but I don't see very many good covered defensive backs, and I think man to man defenses are vulnerable, especially if that defensive back is going to be staring into the backfield. We try to run a little zone, but you know, towards the end of the year, we were just playing man because it just freed our kids up just to play
Yep.
because they didn't have to think about anything else, but just, okay, I got this guy right here
Yep.
and here we go. Let's play ball.
Yep, and if he beats me, he's likely better than me, or had a step on. Yep.
Yes, sir. Our kids are learning that their footwork as defensive backs is really, really important because if you have a false step, the receiver's got at least 2.5 to 3 steps. And if you have two false steps that gain you no ground either way, man, that kid's gone. I mean, flat gone.
Yep.
So, kids are learning and they're coachable, so it's fun.
I want you to talk a little more about just this last year. I know you guys won your district. You had some closer wins, early in the year over Hanover, Little River, Clifton Clyde, and then you beat Hoxie by 2 to go to Substate. Could you talk about, kind of what that was like to reach the semifinals, only in your second year of 8-man, and then just tell us a little about last
Yeah, the Hoxie game was, man, it's right up there with the best wins that I've been associated with in any coaching. The wins to get us to the state title game in 2013 were wonderful. We won the state baseball title, and I was the head coach that same year. The wins to get us there were unbelievable. But that Hoxie win ranks right up there because our season started with the highest of expectations, and then we get this new scoreboard, and I'm always thinking in the locker room, I don't want any outside influences. It is Ell-Saline against the world. Even if we're at home, it is
year.
Ell-Saline against the world. But I said, hey, in our pregame meeting, I was like, hey, we got this new scoreboard. You're going to play in front of more people that have been at Ell-Saline or than you've played around in a long time. There's a lot of people here from out of town, and let's go play good football. And we just didn't.
Mhm.
And to me, I'm accountable for that because of course I'm the head coach. I told kids we don't have any outside influences in our locker room, and I brought one in. And so after that, boom, I'm going back to I'm in my zone again. I live a Spartan lifestyle, and I'm in a zone, no outside influences. And then we kind of went on a roll. We had some big wins against some teams who really abused us last year. Clifton Clyde pounded us last year, and that was a revenge game for our kids. And after that game, our confidence level just blew up, and not in a bad way. We were working hard, man. They were coming to work every day because they just wanted more of it. Where can we go? Why not us? Type of thing. And then we got to play we get into the playoffs or district, and we got to play all these Western Kansas teams. And every time we go out to Western Kansas and Ell-Saline, we got some tough times out there. You got to play Plainville, you got to play Oakley, you got to play Smith Center, and here we go again. And Hoxie, they kind of pushed us around last year, and we got to go play them again. But you know, we made plays, and we kept in the game. When the game ended, when we were at home against Hoxie, Brandon up in the booth says, "Coach, it's over." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Call another play. Let's go." I'm not even thinking about, I'm just thinking, we're second and one or whatever the situation was. And here we go. Look, we got these kids on the field, call play. And he said, "Coach, their coach just took off their headset." I'm like, "What? What? Okay, man, let's go. Let's go. Victory formation. I can't believe I'm calling that. Oh my gosh." And but then we had this crazy fireworks display. It was it was a thing of beauty. I don't know how much the Hoxie people appreciated it because that was a tough loss for them. They poured their hearts out. They had such good kids. Their Logan Bell, their quarterback, we couldn't corral him. It was like herding fish, and he didn't do anything he wanted to do, but he did everything that he needed to do. Man, tough kid, and their number 12, I can't remember his name. Man, he just pounded us as a fullback, and he was a great kid. And their defensive end, Sam Watkins, wow, he ends up winning the state wrestling tournament. So that's Hoxie for you in a nutshell. You better be ready to go the mats. And our kids they stepped up. It was wonderful. We end up winning that game, and then we go play one of the better teams that I've ever coached against in Wichita County, and they taught me a lot. Man, that was good football. Man, they were good, and they deserved all of the success that they have had.
Referring back to your Hoxie game there. In 11 man, did you guys go for two very often, or did you always had a have a kicker? Because I mean, 2 point game in an
We
8 man game.
we
That's
left with a lot of good kickers at Ell-Saline. And you score that many points, 44, 42. There's sways of momentum too, and you got to be ready for that. There wasn't so much of that when we played 11 man. We didn't really get into these crazy scoring matchups or shootouts. But that one, I slept well that night. I mean,
yeah.
after I came down from that, I slept well, definitely, because the sways of emotion, you just got to be patient with it. And all right, here we go. We got another situation. Let's deal with it. Let's have some fun.
Yep. And that takes strong kids, like you said, bailing wire
Yeah,
and hard work to prevail
yeah,
from that. Them big swings of momentum, whether it's your way or the
you
other
bet.
way.
One of the best things about coaching, at least, is you see a kid, 5 or 6 years after he graduates, and he is the first one to come up to you, and
Hmm.
he'll get a shake and a hug and say, "What's up, Coach Roche? What up?"
Yeah.
And I've had, almost kids tackle me, and
Yep.
I still keep in touch with some of my best friends or former students. So that's to me, that's a blessing, truly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you don't always want to be their friend. You got to, control that line. But I've said that many times where I think back to high school, and that was the greatest experience of my life at that time was high school football. And then I'd try to coach and lead in that same manner, thinking that way in the end. Like, I want my kids to also think this same thing that high school football, that was one of the best experiences of my life. And I haven't had as many, I'm sure, kids, former players reach out to me, but I have had some, and it's always rewarding to hear that. Coach,
Isn't that
I kn
great?
I know what you meant now, or whatever else,
Yeah.
and they come back and thank you.
Yeah. It's all about that tough love because, kids, they don't know it, but they want some structure and they want to be coached. but you got to find that way that, kind of their brain works and what kind of coaching they'll accept and what kind of, honestly, what kind of language they'll accept. And sometimes you can get after a kid, but, some kids you don't. And that's okay too, because that's the beauty of it. You got to find what works and you got to go with it, man. You just try to expose as many weaknesses and somebody else as you possibly can with the tools that you have to work with. That's very rewarding for me.
And speaking of understanding kids' language, like you said, I mean, you've been coaching for a long time. Is it a stronger challenge now to find that language with kids these days? I hate people saying that. I hate even myself saying kids these days because it's not the kids.
Yeah.
It's the world they
Right.
live in,
Right.
and that's how they are.
Yeah.
They are that way now, it's not their fault. But I mean, what would you
Yeah.
say is the challenge?
For me, maybe it might be their decreasing attention span. You got to keep things on the fly a little bit sometimes. Sometimes you can dig in deep in a drill and go down that drill rabbit hole and spend some time in it. But then you see some kids, if they're not being active in that drill, their hands are on their hips and, their brains, they're starting to chit chat. And then, they got these goldfish brains sometimes. But in the end, if you can show them some tough love and some trust and some respect, have kids face their fears in a manageable setting. And once kids can face that, and man, that's not so bad. I actually kind of dug it. Hell, let's do it again.
Yep.
Man, you got something. It might take a while to develop, but you got something to work with for sure.
I mean, I feel like coaches are being put more, and teachers for that matter, that's being put into our hands more than ever, I feel like. Rather than back in
Yeah,
the day, that would have been your parents. Hey, suck it up. You can do it. You can get through, and then that was just your coach reinforcing it, at practice. And not to be bashing parents or kids these days, but I feel like has become maybe an issue that I've witnessed is, yeah, and definitely with the attention spans, but even more so with it's not all kids, it's a very select few and they stand out, but
yeah.
a
No,
few.
I get it, coach. I mean, and then you just, I don't know. I don't know if there's a secret to it, man, besides just putting them into some situations where they just learn that they're tougher than what they think. And I don't know how you do it. That maybe it's on them.
Yep.
Maybe they're just like, okay, man, I'm tired of feeling this way.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to try to not feel that way. What do I got to do to not feel that way? So it's got to go both sides.
Yep.
There's a coach and a player.
Yep.
So it's got to be two-sided. So, keep at it, baby. I love it. You'll love it.
Yeah.
Every minute of it.
Yep. I agree. It's that tough love. And even for us, I mean, it's tough at times, but again,
Yeah,
once you get through it, that reward in the end is going to be that much greater. So
I agree. It has been so far in my career. I hope it keeps up.
last couple questions here, but I wanted to ask you about next year's. So building off of last year's success, what do you look forward to most, going forward?
Oh man. I think we became excited for next year on the bus ride home from Wichita County. When I hear freshman kids who didn't play a play at varsity football. One of the kids was getting on the bus and I was like, hey, he said, great season, coach. I was like, thanks, man. I hope you had fun. He goes, I cannot wait until next year. I'm getting after it, coach. I want to be a part of this. Woo, here we go. So that energy right there, I'm so excited. And the kids that we have coming back, we got some great experience coming back. And I think we have good kids, future all-staters. I mean, we got two good quarterbacks coming back. We have our offensive line. We need to find a left guard. We got some good candidates. We're looking forward to next year for sure. I don't think we're going into the season overconfidence because kids are working hard in the weight room and they tell me about it in class. So I know that they want to be good too. So that is really, really exciting for me.
That's got to be one of the best feelings as a coach, knowing that your freshmen were that excited about it, even after, a loss. That sets you up for the future for sure. How many did you have? I know you guys are 8-man Division One. How many did you have out for football this year?
This year was our biggest roster in years at Ell-Saline. We had 30 kids.
Wow, yeah.
Next year could be a little higher, maybe in the low 30s, because I think we're going to have 8 or 9 freshmen and we're losing 6 total seniors.
Well,
So
that
we're going to gain a few kids.
and that's awesome to have those type of numbers in 8 man. I know when I was a freshman, we had 33, and that was the most we ever had when I was in high school at Baileyville. And I mean, that was literally everybody, but maybe one or two kids. I mean, boys in the high school. Everybody was out. But we,
Success breeds that, don't you think?
yeah, absolutely. Everybody wants to be a part of that. Like you said,
Yeah.
the even just the freshmen not really being on the field, but obviously they were a part of it, and they can't wait to put their mark on it.
Yeah, and I gave them a lot of credit after, in the radio interviews after ball games because, our one of the best things about our team this year was our scout team. Marshall was our quarterback, and we had all these quick little receivers, and they would tear our defense up. And I always knew that when we were getting torn up on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights, we're going to play good on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. I can still remember days of high school and where our scout team throughout the week is tougher than the opponent on Friday, definitely. And that but that's a good thing. Again,
Yeah.
like you just said, that breeds success. All that competitiveness in practice every day. They can't wait till they can,
Uh
they
huh.
they're coming for that spot. So
You bet. And yeah, when there's a little trash talking, there's not much. Our freshmen were really quiet because they're just trying to survive. You know what I'm saying? I
yeah.
mean, these kids are so much faster and so much more experienced and hit so much harder. But every now and then, there'll be a little rubbing after a play.
Yep.
And there might be a little trash talking, a little staring down. And that's not such a bad thing either.
Oh no. Nope, I
Now,
agree.
and if that scout team running back is eyeballing somebody on his way back to the huddle, I'm giving it right back to him, baby.
Yep. Final question though. So again, this is something I ask everybody, but what's just your biggest piece of advice any current or upcoming football coaches out there?
Well, you gotta have an offense and some vocab that you're familiar with, so you can have good schemes. But no matter what you run, you got to tailor that to your talent. So therefore, for me, the baseline, the foundation is knowing your kids. And you got to know who they are, what makes them tick a little bit. You don't need to know everything about them. And I don't, I love them to death, but I don't need them for friends right now. I love them and I'll support them. But like you said earlier, you're not there to be your friend. I'm there to be your football coach, your mentor, and respect goes both ways for sure. And once they understand that and that you're on their side, then maybe they'll give you a little bit extra that they wouldn't have normally. They might fill a hole on a fullback as a linebacker for the first time, and they're like, "Wow, I can't believe I just did that." But I would say know your kids, and just because you love to run the option, you still got to have a kind of quarterback and a type of running back to run it. And if they don't like it, then you got to figure something else out. And sometimes you got to take your ego out of it as a coach and adapt to the situation as much as humanly possible without stretching out through your morals or your foundational principles of you as a person and a coach. So I know that's kind of a widespread answer, but and those kinds of things take a long time. My wife would say I'm a 53-year-old kid, so I'm still figuring it out, man, and trying to adapt kids to the situation and me to them and everything else in between. So be patient. I love what you're doing, and keep watching film. I love exchanging film. I'm open to any kind of exchange, and I think it's good for football in general because we can steal from each other and learn from each other. So keep learning. Just keep doing what you're doing with the best intentions and with the kid in mind. So that would be my advice.
Absolutely, coach. I agree. Once you know your kids, you can adapt to them. That's what it's all about. Adapting to your kids and continuing to learn each day. And absolutely. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you very much for coming on here and doing this with me.
You bet, man. It's a pleasure. I love your program. I love listening to it. I listen to it down in the weight room in the morning sometimes. It's a good way to keep learning, like you said, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love to hear different stories, and I get to interact and connect and meet so many new people and learn things just that way. And even me
Yeah.
talking out loud, I hate listening to myself, but even hearing myself talk out loud, I've relearned things, just talking about it. So it's been a great thing for me too. So I truly love doing it.
Yeah, you can ask coaches questions that from another coach's point of view, not just some bystander on, why'd you call this play? No, 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 no. There's a lot more to it than that. And coaches know that. And it's fun to talk some football.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Coach.
You bet, man. Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. If you ever have a question for me, feel free to comment below on this video or follow and message me on Twitter at 8-Man Breakdowns. If you've learned anything or enjoyed the video, please click subscribe and check out some of my other videos right here. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in.